Think about how you instantly connect, say, a smell to a memory, or maybe how understanding past mistakes helps you nail a presentation today.
Right. Our brains are constantly weaving these relational threads, aren't they? To make sense of the world and, you know, achieve our goals.
Exactly. And what if we could give AI that same powerful ability to see and use those connections?
Well, that's pretty much what we're diving into today. We've got a really fascinating research paper here. It's called Relational Recurrent Neural Networks.
Okay. And our mission, really, for this deep dive is to unpack a new kind of AI memory system. It's called the Relational Memory Core, or RMC for short.
Yeah, and the researchers behind this, they believe it's a pretty significant leap towards, well, more intelligent AI.
The core idea seems to be moving beyond just storing information
Hmm.
to actually understanding how different pieces of that information relate to each other,
That's it. It's not just about remembering facts in isolation, it's grasping the connections between them.
which sounds absolutely key for more advanced problem solving, right?
Definitely. And it's not just theoretical. This paper shows how the RMC actually performs on some pretty tough tasks.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well, areas like navigating complex environments, understanding and executing programs, and even in language modeling, the results look quite promising.
Okay, interesting. So let's get into the details then. What makes this relational memory core tick?
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's unpack this. The paper kicks off by highlighting a core challenge in AI, getting machines to truly grasp relationships.
Right. They call it relational reasoning.
And the way they define it is really insightful. It's about understanding how different things are connected and then using that understanding to achieve some goal.
Mm-hmm. Like the example they give.
Yeah, the tree example.
Mhm.
Imagine you need to line up trees based on how far they are from a park bench.
You can't do that just by knowing where each tree is individually.
Exactly. You have to compare the distances. Those are the relationships between each tree and the bench. It's all about those connections.
And what's fascinating here is that even though our current AI models, they process streams of information incredibly well,
Yeah.
the researchers suspected that their internal memory systems might just hit a wall when it comes to really understanding these kinds of relationships as they unfold over time.
Okay, so the standard tools have limitations. Things like LSTMs,
Oh.
long short-term memory networks.
Precisely. And other systems that sort of augment neural networks with memory, they point out potential limitations.
Like what kind of limitations?
Well, think of an LSTM. It's a bit like having one single, constantly updated note. It holds a lot, sure, but it might blur the lines between different pieces of info.
Making it hard to see specific relationships clearly.
Right. And then memory augmented networks, on the other hand, they can be more like having a bunch of separate notes.
Good for individual facts, I guess?
Good for individual facts, but maybe harder for them to interact and reveal the connections between those facts unless you explicitly tell them how.
Okay, that makes sense. So they needed a way to specifically test this relational idea.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So to really put this to the test, they came up with this clever challenge. They called it the nth farthest task.
Nth farthest. How does that work?
Okay, imagine feeding the AI a sequence of random points in space, just vectors. Then you hit it with a question like, which point is the, say, third farthest away from this specific reference point M?
Ah, okay, so it sounds simple, but the AI has to calculate all those distances.
And then compare them. Compare the relationships between all the points and that one reference point.
Got it. And how did the standard models do, the LSTMs and DNCs you mentioned? Differentiable neural computers.
Well, here's the kicker. They really stumbled on this. Their accuracy barely crept above like 30%.
Wow, only 30% on a task specifically designed for relational understanding.
Yeah, they just couldn't seem to crack it, which of course leads us right to.
The relational memory core, the RMC. This is where it gets really interesting.
Absolutely. The fundamental idea behind the RMC is basically allowing the memories it stores to actively interact with each other.
Interact with each other and also with new information coming in.
Yes. And that's a key shift from those more kind of isolated memory approaches we just talked about.
Okay, so how does it enable that interaction? What's the mechanism?
The engine driving it is something called multi-head dot product attention. MHDPA for short.
Okay, multi-head dot product attention. Sounds a bit technical.
It does, but the core concept is actually pretty intuitive once you break it down. Imagine you have your group of stored memories, right?
Mm-hmm.
Each memory can send out feelers Think of them as queries to all the other memories, which act as keys.
Okay, queries and keys.
And based on how well those queries match the keys, each memory then gets to focus its attention and update itself with relevant information, the values from those other memories.
Okay, so it's like the memories are talking to each other, figuring out who has relevant info based on the query.
That's a great way to put it, like a network of people sharing ideas. Each person or memory asks questions, queries.
And the people with relevant knowledge, the keys, respond more strongly.
Exactly. And the original person incorporates that knowledge, the values, into their own understanding. The dot product part is just the math for measuring relevance.
And multi-head.
That's like having multiple different ways of asking questions simultaneously, allows for more nuanced interactions, seeing relationships from different angles, perhaps.
Okay, that helps. And how does new information get into this collaborative memory space?
It uses a modified version of that same attention mechanism. When new data arrives, it also gets considered when the keys and values are being calculated.
So existing memories can pay attention to the new input too.
Exactly. It gets folded into the ongoing interaction.
And they connect this back to LSTM somehow.
You do. They integrated this attention mechanism within an LSTM framework. You can almost picture the RMC's memory matrix as being like the internal state of a, say, 2D LSTM.
Where interactions happen across different memory slots, not just along a single line.
Sort of, yeah. And they also experimented with something called memory gating as an alternative way to control updates, different from the standard LSTM gates.
And I remember you saying it's tunable, not one size fits all.
Right. That's crucial. You can adjust things like the number of memory slots, how big each one is, how many of those attention heads you use.
Giving you flexibility to balance storage capacity and complexity for different tasks.
Precisely. Lots of knobs to turn.
Okay, so we've talked about how it works in principle. How did it actually do? Let's circle back to that nth farthest challenge.
Right. The results there were, well, pretty dramatic.
Dramatic how? Remember, the standard models were stuck below 30% accuracy.
The RMC absolutely crushed it. It achieved a whopping 91% accuracy.
91%. Wow. That's not just a small improvement.
Not at all. It really strongly suggests that explicitly enabling memories to interact is, well, a game changer for tasks that hinge on understanding these relationships.
They look into how it was doing that inside the RMC.
They did. They analyzed its attention patterns, which gave some really interesting clues. Well, they observed that before the model saw that reference vector M, it seemed focused on just writing the incoming vectors into specific memory slots, kind of organizing things.
Okay, just storage initially.
But as soon as M appeared, the attention shifted dramatically. Suddenly, all the memory slots were paying close attention to those particular memories where mem itself had been stored.
Ah, so it's like it learned to tag the relevant information and then quickly cross-reference everything else against it.
That seems to be the idea, tracking those underlying relationships to find the answer.
Okay, impressive on that specific task. But did they test it on other things? More complex problems?
Oh yeah, they didn't stop there. They put it to the test on something called program evaluation.
Program evaluation, like understanding code.
Exactly. There's a data set called Learning to Execute LTE. It's basically a collection of short snippets of computer code. The AI's task is to read the code and predict the output.
Okay, and code is all about symbols and operators defining relationships between variables, right?
Yeah.
Precisely. To understand the code, you absolutely need to understand those underlying relationships.
So how did the RMC do?
It performed incredibly well, consistently matching or even outperforming other strong models like LSTMs, DNCs, and another one called EntNet.
Better even sometimes.
Yes, and what's particularly impressive is that in some cases, the RMC did better, even when the other models got extra help during training a technique called teacher forcing.
Wow, so that suggests the RMC is learning the underlying logic more robustly, less reliant on hints.
That seems to be the implication. Better generalization.
Okay, what else? Did they try reinforcement learning?
They did. They threw the RMC into the world of RL, testing it in 2 different simulated environments.
Which ones?
First, there was Mini Pac-Man, but with a twist. The agent only had a tiny viewport.
So we could only see a small part of the maze at once.
Exactly. It had to rely heavily on memory to track ghosts, pellets, plan routes, all based on incomplete information.
And the RMC?
Showed a significant jump in performance compared to a standard LSTM in that challenging, partially observable setting.
Okay, Pac-Man. What was the other environment?
It was called Box World.
Ah,
This one's really interesting because it's highly complex, very combinatorial.
How so?
The agent needs to understand abstract relationships between colored keys and locks. It's not just about where things are spatially.
Ah, like this blue key opens that blue lock, which gives me the red key for the other lock.
Exactly that kind of reasoning. And again, it's partially observable. The agent only sees a small part of the world.
Sounds tricky. How did the RMC fare there?
An agent using the RMC achieved a 98% success rate.
98%. And compared to what?
Compared to a similar agent using a COMDL STM, that's a type of network usually good for visual stuff over time, which only managed 73%.
Big difference again.
Yeah.
So it suggests the RMC is better suited for that more abstract relational reasoning needed for keys and locks.
That's what the results strongly suggest, yes. Better handling of abstract relations in memory.
Okay, so abstract reasoning,
Yeah.
games. Without language.
Yeah.
That seems like a big test.
For sure. And they tackled a fundamental task there, language modeling, predicting the next word in a sequence.
Which is a crucial benchmark for how well an AI understands language.
Right. Absolutely. And here again, the RMC achieved state-of-the-art results on several large language datasets. Things like Wikitext 103, Project Gutenberg, GigaWord.
State of the art? How did they measure that?
Across the board, it consistently showed a reduction in something called perplexity.
Perplexity. Remind me what that means.
Think of it as how surprised the model is by the actual next word. Lower perplexity means less surprise, meaning it's doing a better job of predicting, of understanding the patterns.
Got it. Lower perplexity is better.
Right. And what was also notable was that the RMC seemed to learn more efficiently from the language data.
More data efficient.
Yeah, and it performed strongly even when it only had a short snippet of preceding text to work with.
Suggesting it's good at capturing short-term relationships between words.
That seems right. And they also found it got better at predicting frequent words, which is interesting.
So, wow. Across a really diverse set of challenges, abstract reasoning, strategic games, language nuances, the relational memory core really demonstrated some impressive capabilities.
It really did.
So what are the main takeaways here? What should we really pull from this?
Well, I think the most significant one is pretty clear. Explicitly designing AI memory systems to model how memories connect and interact, this relational reasoning we've been talking about.
Yeah.
It leads to significant boosts in performance across a really wide spectrum of tasks. It just seems that this ability to understand relationships within its own memory gives the AI a real leg up.
Especially when dealing with sequential information or complex environments.
Exactly.
Is it fair to say they've completely nailed down why it works so well, though? The exact mechanisms?
Ah, that's a good point. It's worth noting that while the research provides really compelling evidence for the RMC's effectiveness, the researchers themselves point out they're still actively exploring the precise reasons why it excels at relational reasoning.
So they have strong hypotheses, maybe some clues from that nth farthest analysis.
Right, valuable proofs, but the exact causal mechanisms are still being investigated. It's not fully mapped out yet.
Understood. And what about those practical aspects, the tuning? Number of memories versus size.
Yeah, they touch on that trade-off. Having lots of small memory slots versus fewer, larger ones. It seems like the best balance might depend quite a bit on the specific task you're tackling.
Makes sense. And any thoughts on handling really, really long sequences?
They briefly mentioned the potential for combining purely recurrent approaches, like the RMC, with other techniques that might scale better for extremely long or even, unbounded streams of data. Maybe hybrid approaches are the future there.
Okay, so to kind of bring it all together, this deep dive into the relational memory core, it really reveals an exciting new direction for AI memory, doesn't it?
I'd say so. By fundamentally enabling memories to interact and understand their relationships, the RMC shows significant progress on tasks that need more than just rote memorization.
Yeah, we're talking potential breakthroughs in AI's ability to handle complex problems, navigate tricky environments, process language, maybe on a deeper level.
That seems to be the potential, yes.
Right.
It opens up some really intriguing possibilities for the future of AI.
I mean, if we can build systems that not only remember, but also truly understand that intricate web of relationships within their memories.
What new kinds of intelligent machines might we be able to create? That's the big question.
And that's really the thought I want to leave you, the listener, with today. Think about your own experiences, maybe the challenges in your own field or work. Where does the ability to understand their relationships between different pieces of information make all the difference? Could a memory system like this RMC revolutionize those areas?
It's definitely a fascinating avenue to consider as AI continues its rapid evolution.